Hi, I'm Andrei Mincov, the founder of Trademark Factory and your host for the Kick-Ass Brand Show. For today's episode, I have for you Matt Astifan. He founded a company called WebFriendly and also Internet Masterminds Group, the largest and longest standing internet marketing meetup in the world. So he started both in 2009. His events have attracted some of the world's brightest minds in digital marketing and internet entrepreneurship to share their wisdom and expertise. He's done over 100 keynotes and presentations at many of Western Canada's leading companies and conferences. He's sold out events, each attract hundreds of entrepreneurs and professionals who attend to hear him speak on the latest methods in digital and social media marketing. In this interview, Matt has shared some inside secrets about growing his brand and making sure the content he puts out gets seen. Matt even put on his educator hat on and went through some of the specific tools his company is using to kill it in the social media space. So get ready, here it comes. So Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to have you on. And
Thanks, Andrei. I'm excited to be here.
the interesting thing really is that the dynamic of our relationship just keeps changing all the time because I remember when I got to Vancouver and started running my business. You were the big superstar with your internet masterminds meetup, and that was kind of your only focus. And that kept changing. You kept evolving with this. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about during this interview. And
Cool.
really excited to have you on, and I'm sure the audience as well because you have so much wisdom to share.
Awesome. Thank you.
So let's start with just the simple question: how did you get into this whole internet marketing industry, and why do you think you'd become successful at it?
I'll give you the short story because this could be a long story. But basically, I was in film. I was working in the film industry. I found that people who are in the film industry over 10 years oftentimes hate their life and hate their jobs. Film industry demands long hours from you, and your typical day is 12 hours. There's no such thing as an 8-hour film set day, so you're going 12 to 15 hours a day, and it can be really draining.
Were you an actor, or what were you?
No, I was a props guy. I was a props assistant. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, but yeah. So then I realized that because I was in it my first 2 years or whatever. I did it. I was excited. I liked it, but I noticed that people who were in it for a long time, they did not enjoy it after a long period of time. So I knew that it was probably not something I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
At that time, the real estate market was booming in Vancouver. All my friends were becoming realtors. They convinced me to become a realtor, and I call myself the failed real estater. I didn't understand the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent, so I called it a real estater. And that year, I went into over $30,000 in debt, and I was really doing poorly. At the end of the year, it was just before Halloween, I went to my managing broker and I said, I'm broke. I've got no marketing skills. I've got no sales skills. What should I do? And he said, well, you're young. Why don't you try to figure out this internet marketing thing? That's what all the realtors are doing now,
Hmm.
right? So it just so happened that a week prior to that, I met this guy. His name was Sandeep. He just came from India, and he was looking to start an internet marketing agency in Canada.
Hmm.
So he was telling me a bit about it. He explained to me like around SEO. He said, "Do you know anyone that wants to rank number one on Google? I could rank them." And my first question to him was like, "Is this even legal?" Like I thought this was illegal. Like he was like a hacker or something. He explained to me it was not illegal. That he explained to me the concept of SEO and how it works. So I went back to him, a week later, and I said, "Hey, can you teach me this stuff?" And so I said, "How can we work together?" So he needed help with sales. He had a really thick Indian accent and didn't have a easy time making sales.
Yeah.
And I needed sales skills, and I needed to learn internet marketing. So I worked with him on commission only for over a year. We drove hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales together. And after about 2 years, I decided to start doing workshops on my own and teach people the basics of social media, right? How to use Twitter, how to use Facebook. Like we were setting people up with accounts on Twitter, like how to use a hashtag and an @ symbol. This is before Justin Bieber was on Twitter or Oprah was on Twitter, or when Ashton Kutcher got on Twitter, that's when it started to get really big. This is before any celebrities were on Twitter. Just online celebrities, online personalities were there, right? So it was a new thing. People come into the workshop not knowing what Twitter was at all, and then that evolved. And then every weekend I started doing it more and more. So I started doing it once a month, and I was doing it every weekend and so on. So I started making more money teaching those workshops than I was working at this agency. So I decided to make my departure and start doing workshops. Mm-hmm. That evolved over time. The meetup started. We started doing the meetups and that kind of.
So at what point did the meetup start?
The meetup started in the same month that I started Web Friendly, and so it was just everything just kind of came together. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't trying to build a brand. I wasn't, I was just moving and shaking. I was just implementing anything that came to mind. No real risks, right? Just trying out new things. It's great when you start because it's just like anything. Whoa, will this work? Will this work?
Yeah.
And it evolved over time, right? So now, the business is a lot different than what it was back in 2009.
Right. So, you mentioned starting the meetup, starting Web Friendly. So
Mm-hmm.
you didn't. So when you first started, doing the webinars, the do it for you setting up,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a company back just yet, or was there?
I think I had a GST number. I think probably I had that going.
And to those of you who are not Canadians, GST is basically a tax that Canadian companies and people need to register with as if they're making above a certain amount.
Yeah, I think at the time it was like if you made over $20,000 or something, and now I think now it's 50,000 or something. But I mean, I didn't know or didn't think that workshops and training was going to be my focus in my career. And so at the time, I just said I'm just doing this for now because I was trying to figure out what to do, mm-hmm. and I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed teaching. I really enjoyed creating content and workshops and so on. So I was just going with it just because I was having a good time. I was young and started making some good money, and so I was pretty happy.
Yeah, and then the meetup was born.
Yeah.
And you very quickly grew to some huge numbers. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we started the meetup group, and originally the meetup group was a bunch of internet marketers getting together and watching Frank Kern videos. It was funny because last week I was just in Vegas and I got to meet Frank Kern in person for the first time. And I told him, I'm like, you're famous in Vancouver now. So it's kind of funny. But, then it evolved, from watching videos to finding speakers. So then I started going out trying to find people. Actually, for the first 6 months, actually, I should say, I was the speaker for the first, I can't remember how many months. Maybe that was a year. I can't remember how long I did that. Mm-hmm. But we'd watch a video. I would do commentary and lead a discussion around these videos we were watching. I started doing presentations and then got to a point where I was like, hey, this is great, but I'm not really getting anything out of, well, I thought I wasn't really getting a lot out of just sharing my knowledge with everybody, right? Mm-hmm. I said, I want to learn too. I want to hear from other people. And there was nobody else in the group that was able to step up and talk, right? So I started going out and finding speakers, and that made it great for me to be able to make friends with influencers in our city. I now realize going back, how much you learn from teaching, right? So at the time, I was still young. I didn't realize that, but you actually learn a lot from actually sharing your knowledge with other people, documenting your knowledge, either in the written form, videos, interviews like this, speaking engagements or whatever. There's a lot of benefits to it, right? But at the time, that hey, I'll go out and find other speakers, and then every week we would have a new speaker. So we were doing literally every single Monday night. We would have a speaker, and then at one point we said, okay, let's do it every Monday unless there's a holiday, right? And in Canada, for anyone who doesn't know, we have a holiday every single month in Canada, right? Or except for 1 month now, right? I can't remember what that. Is that what it was? It's just every single month.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. This is
Yeah,
almost, yeah.
which is in, I can't remember what month that was. But anyways, so a lot of holidays ended up falling on Mondays too. But then after a few years, we're like, okay, let's take summer breaks, right? So no. But when we first started, it was literally every Monday. Like it was pretty crazy. And then we slowly started kind of like tapering it down and so on. But yeah, that's kind of what grew it. We were getting 80 to 100 people coming out every single Monday at our peak when we're in Kitsilano. And then I took a break, and then I said, okay, I'll try doing this once a month. And the momentum was really lost trying to do it once a month versus every single week, which is something that I had realized by trying it. Every single week, everybody knows every Monday, Internet Masterminds. When it's once a month, it's like, oh, when was that meetup happening? I know it's happening sometime this month, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we're actually, I have a whole new vision for what I want to do with Internet Masterminds in 2018. So I got a whole new thing I'm going to be trying out.
Can you share that, or is that a secret?
I don't mind. I could share it, yeah, but it's still kind of in the works. I'm kind of playing with it. I don't mind sharing that. But one thing that I always, everything that I do, my marketing, organizing, promoting events, I always say I want to create the kind of event that I'd want to go to, right? Mm-hmm. So when I find a speaker at Internet Masterminds, I always tell them, like, you got to be speaking to me, because there was a time where I was running the events where I would just sit in the back of the room and everyone else was enjoying the presentation. But to me, I was getting bored because I already knew all the information. And I was just like, well, it wasn't getting a whole lot out of my time for being there. And by the way, you don't make a lot of money running a meetup, right? It's more for building a community and, meeting people and, connecting with influencers, that sort of thing. Yeah. So, I decided, I only want to do events that I'd actually want to show up for. So bringing in speakers and doing that, we've been doing it for a long time. I've now come to a place where it's harder for me to actually find really good speakers that I want to learn from, right? So
do you pay them to come in, or is it?
No, I wouldn't pay them. They're usually speaking because they want to get the exposure, or they want to share the message, or they see the value in just contributing back to the community, right? We've also considered the model of potentially paying speakers. It's kind of tough to find really high quality speakers that will speak for free, or sometimes we could do a joint venture with them where they can promote a product or service that they have, and we'll earn an affiliate commission from that. But I didn't really want to make like an event where people come and get pitched every single time, right? Because I wouldn't want to go to that, right? I wouldn't want to go to an event like that. Yeah. I just want to go to a place where people are sharing their knowledge and we can discuss it. That's interesting to me.
Right.
So, Andrei, did you ever go to a Funnel Hacking Live? You went last year, right?
I did, yes.
So anyone who doesn't know, Funnel Hacking Live, it's organized by ClickFunnels, right? I went there the first 2 years that they hosted it, and they do this interesting thing where they have this roundtable discussion. They invite people to lead a roundtable. So they invite like an influencer or a very knowledgeable marketer to lead a roundtable, and you just kind of go around to the different roundtables and you can just ask questions and have discussions around whatever topic is being talked at that table. Mm-hmm. And I thought that'd be really interesting to just maybe do that once per month and just invite, some influencers and so on who don't have to, create a presentation. They don't need a slide deck, right? Sometimes I know influential speakers that can't speak at our events because they're part of like a speakers bureau, for example, right? Mm. But they're very knowledgeable. It is not allowed, like based on their agreements, right? Hmm. But I could probably have them just lead a roundtable, right?
Right.
So I have an idea of kind of using that sort of a format. It's going to be slightly different, and then just see how that goes and just have a networking. We got a new location that we scouted out. So
that's going to be in person, not virtual.
Yeah, it's going to be an in-person event in Vancouver.
Nice.
We might even incorporate, maybe we have like a 30-minute talk followed by a round table. So we're still brainstorming it, right? Mm-hmm. Again, I'm trying to think about what is the thing that I would, take time out of my day to attend. That's what I want. I don't want to just do it just because I know other people might like it, whatever. It's like I still got to be there, and I want to make sure everyone gets value from that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So here's the question for you, because your main brand, Web Friendly, how'd you come up with that and the visuals for it? Because they were quite different from what we can see on the website today. So walk us through that.
So, all right. So when I first started Web Friendly, loved the name. I don't know where the hell I came up with it, to be honest. Mobile friendly, web friendly, whatever. I shot around different names to different people. I hid the name. It's so stupid. It was like 7, 8, and then the word nine. I was gonna call my company 789. You know the joke of 789. I don't know why. I had a lot of dumb ideas for business names, and and web friendly. Everyone's like, yeah, that's a nice name, web friendly. I got the .ca. Contacted the guy who owned the .com. He's a domainer. He wanted $20,000 for it. I was like, no thanks. I'll stick with .ca.
Yeah.
Fast forward years later, after lots of different discussions with that name got tossed around to 3 different owners. I finally got it for, it was like $3,000 last year. Top of us getting the trademarks from you as well, from both Canada and the US. We own all the usernames for Web Friendly as well across every social media platform. You type in whatever platform /Web Friendly, we're there. We got the username. So we definitely own the name online. Now, in terms of the branding, the visual identity, I just went through the past, it's actually probably been over a year, almost a year, sorry, since I first kind of was like, I want to redo the visual identity to like, we have actually redone the visual identity. We're still working on, what are the brand assets for the brand now. Originally, I hired a guy. He had an office near my office. I think I met him through Twitter, as a matter of fact. And he was one of the graphic designers for the first Spider-Man movie. Actually, I don't know exactly what he did there, but he worked there. So he worked for like Pixar at one point, Disney, that sort of thing. And originally when I had the idea for the bees, I watched a TED Talk, and this TED Talk was talking about how the way that bees interact is like a social network. I have searched TED on multiple occasions trying to find that video that inspired the bee as our logo. I cannot find it. I have no idea. But anyways, that was kind of the concept. So old logo was a bee. And a lot of people liked it. I hired designers on 3 different occasions to redo our logo because I wanted to redo it for a long time. There's a lot of things that were wrong with it and inconsistencies with it anyways. I hired and paid designers 3 different times, got the designs that I would show people. I'd say, which design do you like better? And everyone would always go with the original one. Everyone always liked the original one better. And so it became very hard. I spent, thousands of dollars with design over years trying to redo this. And it was funny because
always got back to the same one.
What's that?
Always got back to the old one.
Yeah. And then when we launched the new brand, I've got a blog post about how we relaunched a new brand or whatever. And then the first comment on it was, I like the old logo better. And I was like, shut up. I was like, just leave it. I'm not getting the old one. So anyways, the new logo, basically the concept that I had was, it's like what image represents the web, right? And we're talking about the web as both like a culture and as kind of like, I almost want to say like a society of people that are online, right? Some people say that they're, what's the word? A digital citizen, that sort of thing, right? So the icon that I thought about was the hashtag, right? The hashtag is a representation of the way that we categorize information online, right? It's kind of like the new keyword in a sense, right? So we were playing around with this idea of the hashtag. We gave that to a designer to play with. We had different concepts that come up. And actually, the logo that we have now, I don't know if you could put it up on the screen or not anyways, we call this the smile tag. And the first variation of this, was in actually the first 3. We originally got delivered 3 variations of the logo. I was kind of like, I kind of like them, but I'm not sure. Then we had more variations and so on. We ended up coming back to this one where it was interesting, but I said it looks like a currency icon. The original version of it, anyways. And I thought like it looked like a cryptocurrency, icon you'd have or something like that, almost like a dollar sign. And so that's why I was like, I don't know if it says what we're trying to convey, right? So we made adjustments to it. We simplified it a lot more. Originally it was 3D. We flattened it and so on. And we went from round curves to sharp edges on it. And then there was this whole thing with playing with fonts. We spent maybe 2 weeks on the font, not 2 weeks full time, but back and forth, just trying to choose the right font. And it still wasn't feeling right, and I felt this inconsistency between our icon and the font. And then I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Wilson, and I asked Wilson what he thought, because Wilson was, into the branding world as well. And he just took the logo and he just italicized the fonts. And as soon as he did that, we realized that the arch that was on the hashtag, and that's I can't remember what the degree is on that, but it's a very specific degree that the arch
It's
is
like a
on.
brand book with
Yeah,
all
you
sorts
know,
of, yeah, I'm
yeah,
very curious.
yeah. Eugene would be able to tell the story better, but Eugene's the one who's really worked on this. But then we basically the italicization of the font is exactly on par with the angle that's in the hashtag, which kind of made everything kind of go together, and that gave me my like, yes, like that's it, right? So then everything else got built behind that. So yeah, I mean, we're trying to go with bright colors. We're thinking a lot about how are people going to perceive the brand when they first see it, right? Originally, we're a lot more darker colors, right? So we were like a darker blue and a darker yellow, whereas now we're trying to go with more light stuff, and also we have a certain set of filters that we're using on certain images. We just redid all of our YouTube thumbnails as well. But yeah, we actually, it was funny with the YouTube thumbnails when we were designing those. We actually looked at what Gary Vaynerchuk was doing. If you take a look at Gary V's channel, he's got these thumbnails that are all slanted, right? And it was funny because when we originally did it, we kind of liked that idea. We're like, oh, it looks different, right? So the thumbnails look slanted, but that's just because there's a portion of the square image, which is the same white pigment as YouTube, right? So YouTube's background is not actually completely white; it's a pigment of white, right? So originally we were looking at that, and then Eugene was like, if we do that, it's going to become a trend. Everyone's going to start using this like slanted thing because Gary V's probably just started this new design trend on YouTube, right? So we wanted to do something different where we are also not just using a standard square. So we came up with a different format where again, we don't have squares, exactly square. So that was where that came from. It was funny because after we did that, we started noticing a whole bunch of other channels that are now doing the slant. And it was also funny that slant that Gary Vee is using was 1 degree off of our signature slant, which is the slant inside the hashtag, which I totally forget what the degree was. I think it was like 97.6% or so, or whatever degrees. So that's where that came from. We just went through this whole thing with creating images for our blog posts. So if you go to webforlady.com, you could see that. And the designer kind of came to us. We were trying to go, like, do we want cartoon thumbnails or do we want stock photo thumbnails, right? Like tossing this up. So the designer threw something out at us where he's like, here's a mixture. And I believe it was a 2-to-1 or like a 3-to-1 ratio of cartoon images and stock images, right? And as soon as he gave us an example of what that might look like, right away we're like, yeah, that's it. Mixture of both cartoon images and stock images. So it's been interesting, the challenges that we've had with coming up with the right images for our blog post. Right now we have over 100 pieces of content in the queue that we're publishing, and we need to create images for all of them, right? So yeah, it was a budgeting thing. It's like, what is the right budget for this? As well as, with stock photos, it was a budgeting and like, how do we actually find these right images, right?
Yeah.
So we scour different, sites where we can, purchase, the right stock photos. We hired 2 different designers so far. We're actually looking for a 3rd designer who can get our images made quickly, on budget, at scale, because we got so many that we need to make, right? So I tossed it up with a lot of friends. I was like, what do you guys think is the appropriate price to pay for a blog post image, right? And because we need hundreds of them, I didn't want to spend, even $5 or $10 per image. I thought, we could get it done for less because we got to get them done at scale, right? So we ended up coming to the number of like $250 US, right? Which to us is about $3, $3.50 or so, right? Yeah. As our ballpark budget, right? So that's first design.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, it was good, right? So what happened was the first designer did it, and I think we paid him, I think it was like $3 or something like that. They were good. I said, okay. And so then we went to another designer, and he did 75 images for us, and then said that it wasn't worth his time in doing it. So like, okay, cool. So, respectable, whatever, right? Because we're trying to figure out what is the appropriate number in order to get the quality that we want, right? So. So it's been interesting. So we're actually going now, and I'm trying to find somebody overseas and seeing if there's a way to do it. We haven't really figured it out yet. If we have to go to the $5 per image thing, and that's what it is, then that's what it is. I mean, it's acceptable. We're just trying to figure out what is the appropriate number, because our goal is to get to, for example, like 10 posts per day that we're publishing, right? We're looking to build a media company. And in that case, we could be spending quite a lot just on images alone, not including actual content production.
Right.
Yeah, but an image goes a long way, right? Like there's actually a lot of value in having the right kind of image. So it's not like we are opposed to paying more. We're just trying to figure out, what is the appropriate number, right? And
Yeah.
and I don't want to be paying $10 an image and finding out that someone else only pays $1. And I'm like, damn it, it's like,
Yeah, they just don't have the same demands as you when you're posting 10, images a
yeah.
day.
Yeah, like initially, like we had 50 YouTube videos, and we said let's do all the thumbnails for those, right? So that was a stack there. Then we have, I think it was like 80. We could easily get to 100 articles that we're now trying to pump out, but we
Right.
need edit the articles, create the images, and whatever. So yeah. So I mean, because we're doing so much in bulk, which is why I believe that we can get that cost down and also quality up, right? So it was interesting the feedback that we got from the last designer, being like, he was just like he had spent like 2 hours on one image at one point or something like that, and just
That's
saying
tough.
that wasn't really worth his time, which I totally understand. So I mean, but he was also doing really high quality images. If you guys check them out, depending on when somebody watches this or whatever, but our early thumbnails now are very high quality thumbnails, but whether or not that's really important or critical, we don't know. We are yet to find out, right? If I find out that a $10 image is getting us 10 times more shares versus the $1 image that we're creating, I mean, obviously we're going to go with the $10 image, right? But right now we're just not sure. So that's why we're doing the variations. We're trying to figure it out. Eventually, when I know, I'll report back to my community and maybe we'll create a blog post about it. But definitely trying to figure out what is the right solution to finding these images now. And also kind of, we're trying to find the right kind of images that are going to kind of portray the brand the way that we want it to be portrayed online.
So, what's the core business for you right now? What's the number one direction that you're moving it towards? Is it education? Is it do it for you? What is it?
Yeah, so right now, like previously, our company was always looked at as either like a school or an agency, right? And now we've kind of done a pivot where we're internally looking at our company like a media company, right? So we're looking to publish content. Right now, it's written content. And one of the top ideas on our idea board is to actually start producing documentaries, specifically documentaries that relate to the internet marketing industry and internet marketing careers, right?
Or what's on the back end?
I'm just talking about this is just pure content, right?
Yeah.
Creating content, right? Now, when we get into the monetization, we've got our courses, we've got our subscriptions, right? We have our coaching. We are looking to put together a mastermind group as well in Vancouver here as well. So there's different things like what I've noticed a lot is a lot of bloggers that produce a lot of great content will produce content, but they don't have a way to monetize it.
Yeah.
We've got the products that we can monetize. We just don't have the content published, right? So that's why now we're just like, I had someone go through all of my courses and basically create articles and stories or whatever you want, strategies and case studies from everything that I teach in all of my courses. So if you didn't want to buy my course, you could just go read the blog, right? And so that's kind of how we did it. So the whole thing is that we're just documenting the knowledge, right?
Right.
My knowledge and, whoever's working with us, their knowledge, right? Just what we know about, what we're learning about the internet marketing industry, right? And I've always wanted to get into more of the storytelling side of marketing. And that's where we get into documentaries and creating that sort of thing as well. Even looking at, as an example, Vox Media, right? Vox Media, as a brand just popped up, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know, 3 years ago, maybe. I'm not even sure. Not that long ago, right? As a company, they've been around for a long time, right? Vox Media is actually a conglomerate of media companies, but Vox that does a lot of news related stuff, and they talk a lot about what's happening in politics. They also create these cool videos on YouTube, and I'm sure everyone watching this has seen a Vox video before, right? It's a cool animated, graphical kind of video that tells a story about a particular topic, right?
Yeah.
There was this whole one about Kanye West and his use of the human voice in his music, right? Or ones about there was a really funny one about what was it that mustard, Wayne's World. What was it? It was
I don't know, I haven't seen it.
Oh, you didn't see Wayne's World? I would think that you're a Wayne's World guy. Grey Poupon. You never know. Anyways, every time I go to a fancy restaurant, I'll always pull the, do you have any Grey Poupon here? And some people at the table don't get it. Other people will laugh because they get it. So they made this Vox video about Grey Poupon and where that came from. And it was really interesting because it was like an actually well documented story about why Grey Poupon is, what it is to people who have seen Wayne's World. And so.
Right.
Anyways, I mean that's an example, but but it was through those videos and through that content that was actually good content that Vox blew up like over a couple of years. I mean, I later learned that they have a huge marketing budget. I didn't know where they came from. Actually, I dug into research. I was like, where did Vox come from? Like, I just started hearing about it maybe a year ago. It was like, now it's like the biggest thing. It's in my newsfeed every day. Their videos are always popping up on my YouTube. Obviously, I'm subscribing and I'm following their stuff, but they're creating great content. So that took me down a rabbit hole. That's actually how I decided that we wanted to create a media company, to go into the rabbit hole of like how Vox Media and Vox Creative, structured their business is basically how we've somewhat restructured Web Friendly and the vision of Web Friendly.
Interesting. So let me take you back to your brand. How does it really help you, build your business, grow your business, or does it even matter in terms of, how you're where your people come from?
Well, I think that you're talking about in terms of the content production.
Well, no, I'm talking about anything that allows you to grow your business, right? Does does having the name word friendly help, or is it totally irrelevant? I don't know.
Well, with the name itself, I think that one is that I wanted a name that was descriptive, right? Because I believe a descriptive name can easily help in your marketing when you don't have to.
Don't ever call your brand descriptive, man. Don't ever do that.
No. But we're talking about the name, web friendly, right?
Yeah.
That was what your question was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, for example, if I called my company Social Media Training Inc., right? There's no question what I do. It's social media training, but it also restricts me. So then when I want to go and I don't know, make a documentary, or I want to do coaching for business coaches or something like that. I want to help business coaches build funnels or whatever, right? Yeah. Then it becomes like I'm restricted because of the name, right? So there's the area where you go to a really descriptive name, right? Or you go somewhere where it's totally vague, right? Where there's some I was just playing around on Medium.com, right? Medium.com could be anything. Medium could mean anything, right? Yeah. But it's a publication where you can go and self-publish yourself, right? Yeah. So that's on the other spectrum, right? So I felt like web friendly was kind of like, it kind of says what we do. It's web and friendly, and I think a lot of people can piece it together.
So the right word to say that is not descriptive, because from the trademarking perspective, that's a horrible term.
Web friendly is not
the right word for that is suggestive. So
there you go.
Yeah, it kind of tells people what it's about, but it does a bit more than that, right? So people understand what it's about, but it still has something that's brandable, something that's trademarkable. So don't call your brand descriptive, call your brand suggestive.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to get. That is the right word for it. But that's what I'm saying is that we don't have a super descriptive word, but we also don't have a super vague word that just doesn't mean anything, right? Because that's kind of where people go with, what should I name my business, right? Yeah. Going back in time, I probably just would have been Astifan.com. I think it's a lot easier to brand yourself than a company, right? Because you already have a story, you know what I mean? Right. With Web Friendly, and I just went through this whole rebranding process, and people asking me, like I had consultants work with me and be like, oh, what's your, like they're trying to figure out everything about you internally and what your beliefs are and what you stand for and so on. And there's things that I stand for personally, but then what does the company stand for, right? And I used to not be able to kind of separate those two because I felt it would be inauthentic to have, one like what I believe and then what the company believes. But you really have to see your business as its own entity, and it's like your child, right? And it's like, how do you want that child to grow up? You don't have to force your own opinions on that company, right? Yeah. And that's what's really changed in this last year of trying to figure out what the right brand messaging is going to be through Web Friendly. I'll give you an example. For the last, however many years we've been in business now, since 2009, our brand has always been anti having a job. right? We show people how to become a freelance social media director so you can work at home or travel the world, and so on, right?
Yeah.
And it was in this whole kind of, brand distillation, right? I had this one guy say, he's like, why does it matter if somebody gets a job? And I said, oh, well, it's just because, that's how we narrowed our niche, right? We narrowed our niche to, we want to help people become freelancers, right? We narrowed the niche, right? And he was kind of like, okay, and that was it, right? It was just kind of in passing, right? But it really stuck with me, the way that he asked the question. It was kind of like,
Right.
why do you care, right? And it made me realize that it was like, I kind of like, if somebody wants to have a job, even now, like I've started hiring people to work with me, right? Some people just want to have a job. They don't want to be an entrepreneur, right? I have this thing that goes out every time someone new subscribes to our newsletter. It sends them a personal message from me just saying, hey, what do you do? What do you offer? And who do you offer it to? Right? I just ask these questions and people respond, right? So I had, someone just recently just respond to me. And she explained to me what it was that she did. And then she said she's working at a company and they're doing marketing and so on. I said, well, what's your, I responded again. I said, well, what's your long-term goal? Are you looking to start your own thing or do you want to excel in your current job? And she said, oh, I definitely want to excel in my current job. Entrepreneurship is just not for me. And it just, again, reinforced the idea that that having a job is not the enemy, right? What really it's about, and when I originally started Web Friendly was because I wanted to help business owners. I actually wasn't trying to help people start careers as social media directors. That was part of it. But the initial idea of the niche that we went into was because there were so many businesses out there that was trying to find someone to handle the social media, and they would hire person after person, and they would just screw it up, and they wouldn't get them any results. Right? And they would tell me all these mistakes that all these people are making. I was like, I want to solve this. I want to show people what is a proper way of doing this. How do you get into a business and know here's the objectives and here's the goals that we should be focusing on and here's how we're going to accomplish it and then execute on that. Right? So I was actually trying to help that small to mid-sized business owner, right? And I know now that small to mid-sized business owners don't just want to work as freelancers, they want to hire people full time. Especially now with social media, almost every company has a full-time social media person on staff, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's not just about being a freelancer. It's also about, if you want to go and get a job, that's cool, right? So that's the company, right? But still me, I'm still like, I'm passionate about helping people quit their job. Right?
Yeah.
I would love, because if somebody comes to me and says, I hate my job, I want more freedom, I want more time freedom, I want more creativity, whatever it might be, it's like that's my thing, right? Like I'm so gravitated towards helping those people. But it doesn't mean that has to also be what Web Friendly is all about too, right?
That's a great insight. I love it.
Yeah.
That's a great insight. Because you're right. A lot of people, they would often confuse the two and merge the two, and then it gives rise to those questions that are legitimate. Why? Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's really no answer.
Yeah. I'll always try to convince someone to go and be a freelancer, be an entrepreneur, that sort of thing, right? But I mean, if they say, back in the day, if someone told me, no, I want a job, I wouldn't quit. I'd be like, no, you don't want it, whatever, right? Whereas now I'm so much more sympathetic to it, right? This last year I've been like, absolutely, like I could totally see why someone would want to be an entrepreneur, right? Work in a company and have the freedoms of being an entrepreneur inside a company, an organization. I think that's great, right? And that's why now with hiring people to work with me, that's what I want them to be. I want them to be entrepreneurs within our organization, so that way they can grow with the business as well, right?
Cool. So look, one more question that I always ask on this show is, in your opinion, and especially because you've helped so many other businesses grow and help them become more visible through social media efforts. In your opinion, what do you think makes a brand kick-ass? What makes a valuable brand that actually has value for the business and makes it easier for them to generate more business?
I'm probably not going to give a very good answer on here, but the initial thought that came to my mind here was more about a brand. I believe should empower the people that it interacts with. So I believe that is a feeling that will be distilled within the brand, right? That empowers somebody when they make a purchase from that brand.
Yeah.
That's kind of my instinct answer to it, and I have no idea
Why
if
would
that
you say it's not a good answer? I think it's a perfect answer.
is it. Okay, I don't know, because I'm not I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, that's kind of where, when I look at brands that I really respect and I really associate to, right? They create a certain feeling for me, right? When you go and you buy, like I had this whole thing where I always wanted a Hugo Boss jacket, since I was young, and then I got the Hugo Boss jacket. When I wear it, I just feel good, and in reality, it's just like any other jacket, right? Just because it was Hugo Boss and I had this association with like Hugo Boss was like cool or whatever, right? So I believe that that's kind of what makes a really kick-ass brand.
Yeah, that's good. So what do you currently do to actually promote the brand, your brand, Web Friendly brand?
Right now, we're focused a lot on the content production and content, publishing. I believe that.
So just organically? Just
Well, right
putting
now,
content out?
I mean, the strategy of like how we're actually doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much time we got? All right, so I'll tell you. So, because I had this, I was struggling with trying to figure out the best way to do this. So, I had all this content already written, right? So let's just call it, we have 100 pieces of content that could be straight up content or a video with an explanation below it, so on, right? So we've got 100 things that we could post as a blog post, right? So we were first like, okay, let's post once per day, right? Let's start there, right? But I said, well, we don't have enough traffic to get traction from posting once per day, right? And then it takes us 100 days to get our content out as well, right? It's going to be over 3 months by the time we get this content out, right? So the other side is that once it's published, we start getting the value of the SEO, right? Organic traffic that might come to it in the future. But we also need to do all the kind of interlinking within our posts as well. So the way that we do it is we have one cornerstone piece of content, and then we have maybe 5 or 6 other articles that are related to this one, but this is the one we're going to keep updating, and this is the one we want to rank. But these other 6 or 7 or however many other posts will all link back to this one post, right? So again, going back to like if we post once per day, it's going to take us like 3 months by the time everything's actually out. And I was like, well, I just want to get it all there so we can just start focusing on SEO, right? And start doing that, right? So we're like contemplating, and the other side of SEO too is that you want to be publishing on a regular basis, because if you just loaded 100 articles in one day, wouldn't be as powerful as doing one per day, right? Because Google will see you're constantly updating the site. So we had this whole like kind of chicken and the egg, what do we do, right? So that was the first kind of challenge. Then I was looking at our social media channels, and we have a lot of followers on our social media channels, and I was like, how do we utilize this? So I was looking at different tools. The original tool that I found was called meetegger.com, right? Where what that does is it basically rotates your content. You put in categories. You say, I want to, at this time slot on Mondays, I want to share one of my YouTube videos, and you upload all your you type out all your social media posts about all your different YouTube videos, and it basically just rotates your own content. Okay.
What's it called again? What's the tool called again?
Okay, this one here was called Meetegger.
Yeah.
It's not one that I currently recommend.
Right.
I got in there, whatever. I mean, it's good. It just priced much higher, and now other people have now ripped them off, basically, and now do it for a lesser cost. And then I found another one that, again, they're actually, I realized later they were Vancouver-based, but they basically ripped off the idea, and it's called, damn it, Andrei, I forget what it's called. Can we put it in the show notes or something? I gotta look it up.
Sure.
I totally forget.
We're using Gremlin for that.
Gremlin? Okay, well that's new to me. I don't even know what that is. Okay. So anyways, and then we found CoSchedule, which is what we're experimenting with right now. Okay. So anyway, so the whole idea is that we can load up our content. So load up, for example, 100 blog posts, and it just it rotates that content over time, right? So what we could do is we could take one article and we can type out 3 different styles of tweets, right? Or Facebook posts or whatever, right? So one could become 3, right? Then with our YouTube videos, we could share the YouTube link directly. We embed it on our website, and then we create variations of that, right? So from one post, you can create multiple pieces of content, right?
Nice.
So out of like 100 posts, you could potentially make 500 things that you're rotating throughout this, right? So that now your social media accounts are constantly sharing your stuff, rotating it over time.
Hmm.
The other side was we also want to have original stuff as well, right? So anytime we post something new, obviously we'll share that. But I also want to curate other people's content. So I was trying to find a way to curate content from people like yourself that I love to share all of your videos because I know you produce great content. I have other friends, Yaro Stark from Entrepreneur Journey. I love to share his articles. I read his blog all the time, love it. Buffer app always has great content. CoSchedule's producing great content, and other influencers, and Dan that we both know is great content. I was trying to find a way. How do I feed in people who I know, and I want to share all of their content? How do I do that, and then schedule that into our calendar, and not recycle their content like we do with our own content, but just post it once. Every time they post a new article, we're going to share it too, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying to find a tool to do that. So I figured out, I hacked together a way of doing this using Feedly, okay? And I used Feedly and I connected it through Zapier to CoSchedule. So basically I could put in the RSS feed for anyone's content that I want into Feedly, and I made it so when I add it to a personal board, and I made a personal board for every one of my social media accounts, it would then feed it into the queue into CoSchedule. So that might be over some people's heads.
No, this is brilliant, and I guess people for whom it's an overwhelm, but they see the value, they would probably be able to reach out to you, and you'd be able to show them a course. Do you have a course in that?
You know what?
Do you have a course in that?
Yeah, what I'll probably do is make a YouTube video on how I did that. But here was the challenge. So I've been going back and forth with CoSchedule trying to figure this out, and I don't think it's going to work specifically with CoSchedule, which is unfortunate because I really like CoSchedule. But the way CoSchedule's kind of, how they reuse your content, they just fill in the gaps, right? So what happens is you say, I want to tweet, for example, 9 times per day on this Twitter account. Right? So if you start using Feedly and start feeding your accounts, right, it's going to keep on adding to the next available time, right? So I want to make it so that eventually I'll hire someone else to do it, right? Right now I'm just testing, so I'm actually doing it myself. But I want to make it so the whole month it's just pre-scheduled with other people's content and ours mixed in, right? Yeah. But it's not going to work because it's going to fill in the gaps only. It's not. I can't create a time slot, right?
Right.
So that's why CoSchedule might not work. I was actually, just before this interview that we're doing, I've been going back and forth all day with CoSchedule, trying to figure out if I can make this work. So CoSchedule is great, by the way. It's really good at that. But yeah, the other tool that I previously found only does rotation of content, and I can't feed it content. So yeah, I haven't actually figured out how to do this whole thing yet. So yeah, but that was basically the concept, is that now we're just publishing content as fast as we can, right? So we'll do, I think we're at 2 or 3 per day that we're publishing on our blog. I'm trying to get them all out as soon as possible. So then we're doing all of our interlinking within our website, and we're loading it into whatever tool is going to rotate our content, right? And then every piece of content we also are going to boost on Facebook. For our budget is $30 per post to boost to our audience. And I also found this other great tool. It's called Q. QUUU.com. Okay, so Q is a tool that allows, basically it's a tool that will feed content into your social channels. Okay, right. So it's great. For free, you can log in and it'll tweet for you 3 times per day based on the categories that you choose. Right. If you pay $15 per month, you could then edit and choose which pieces of content you want. Right. Yeah. So I was using that for a little while in order to kind of be able to curate other people's content, not just our own. But the quality of the content wasn't great. But what I found was that they also have another service called Q Promote. And all that content that was getting fed into my account was actually coming from Q Promote. So the way that works is you put in your article, your blog post, or whatever you want to share. You type in the tweet, you upload your image, how you want to look on Facebook and Twitter and on LinkedIn and so on. And then you pay for a credit, and a credit is at the highest price point is $35. The more credits you buy, the lower the price goes, right? So for $35, you put it in there, and then it gets shared to all their users who are using Q, right? Yeah. So I put in one article in there and looked back at it, I think a month later, it had over 500 shares.
Yeah.
So that was definitely worth it as well. So for every one post, we basically have about a $60 budget to promote it. One is on Facebook, boosted post, as well as on Q, and Q gets a lot of Twitter shares, primarily Twitter shares. So that gives us our Twitter, gets LinkedIn and Facebook as well. So every one post will get that. So that's kind of our initial strategy of what we've come up with so far. The next stage is to start producing new original content as well, and we have a whole other roadmap of how we're going to do that. Right now, we're still in the phase of documenting all the knowledge that I've put out there in the past. We've broken it up into articles and videos and so on, and now we're just loading that in first. Then we're going to get into even more kind of SEO specific content, and hopefully by next year I want to get into actual journalism where we're covering actual news and topics. That's my ultimate goal. But first I get enough traffic for real-time news to matter, because right now if we did it, we just don't have enough eyeballs for it to matter.
Look, this is brilliant. This is really interesting, and it's very exciting to actually have you on here. We got to wrap this up. One thing I got to mention is, so we got a bunch of testimonials on our Trademark Factory website, and from the clients for whom we registered trademarks, and probably one of the top 3 testimonials that people notice and say, well, we decided to give you our business is because of this or this or this. You're one of the top 3 because apparently a lot of people have touched you one way or the other, mostly through internet masterminds. And so it's interesting how people pick that up, right? And apparently you're doing something right, because when you just mentioned eyeballs, you've got a huge audience, and I'm very excited that you are able to share your wisdom with them. I mean, that you're sharing your wisdom with them, and now we got you, so you can share your wisdom with my audience. So thank you so much for coming, and I wish Web Friendly all the best, and I'm sure we'll be all following you and seeing where you take this, whether it's the journalist path, or you're going to come up with something else next year. We're going to see, and really excited about that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.
I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. So here's my question to you. What did you learn from this episode? Is there anything you're going to implement in your business as a result of what you've learned? Matt and I would love to hear from you. So leave your comment below and share this interview with your friends. And if you subscribe, you'll be the first to receive updates about new episodes. So do it now, subscribe, and never miss another episode. And if you think you deserve to be on the show because you have a kick-ass brand, email us at next@kickassbrandshow.com. next@kickassbrandshow.com. I'll see you in the next video.